I'm glad I made a decision.
Yeah, I made that decision.
To let him into my life.
To come into my life.
I'm thankful for the vision.
Thank you, Father.
Things could never be more right.
I'm in the flock.
I'm in the flock.
as it reads in the 23rd chapter of Psalms, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. I'm in the flock.
can't have the microphone? Oh. Jesus went through all the towns and villages, teaching in their synagogues, preaching the gospel of the kingdom, and healing every disease and sickness. When he saw the crowds, he was moved with compassion for them, because they were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, "The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few." Then he said to his disciples, "The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers in his harvest, to serve the present age, my calling to fulfill. Oh, may it all my powers engage to do my master's will." I'm not facilitating this master class because I am a master, but because the master has allowed me to work in his vineyard for 55 plus years. And I am humbled to be back on the red clay soil of my birth to share with you today. Thanks to Pastor Matthews and to his lovely wife who extended the invitation, to you who came, and to my big brother who is my driver. I thank and praise God for Deacon DeAndre Crear sharing with us today. Public service announcement. This is not my daddy's church. I am the son and the great-grandson of preachers. I face things my daddy never faced. And my children will face things I never faced in ministry. But God is constantly calling us to serve the present age. If I had to categorize or give my preaching a style, I would call it a social gospel, because I believe that what I preach on Sunday will work on Monday. It will work on Tuesday. I believe that what I preach on Sunday morning will give solace and comfort to the mother that's burying her child, to the crackhead, to the chicken head, to the locked up, to all of those other folk that we scared to talk about. I believe that the gospel will work for them as well. I don't mean the contemporary church is failing. Whew. We're failing. We're failing. We're not reaching the masses. And that's because those of us on this level of ministry, the average church, go to your city. You can count the mega churches on one hand. But the boots that are on the ground are us. The people that people can call on your cell phone and say, "Pastor, this, that, or the other thing." Or call in the midnight hour. You can call, now let me give a disclaimer right there, because all of them are not guilty. Dr. Jeremiah Wright, former pastor of Trinity United Church of Christ in Chicago, was my mentor for many years. And Dr. Wright, let me tell you how I met him. I had a church member whose sister was his barber and also his usher. And I was pastor in Peoria, Illinois at the time, and the gang situation had really gotten crazy, and I was a trauma chaplain at the Level 1 Trauma Center Hospital. And they were convincing our young black men that Islam was the real religion of black folk. And nobody had thought to go to Africa and, St. Augustine of Hippo. Nobody thought to go and check out the fact that he went south into Africa teaching Christianity. I was confused. So I ran across a tape by Jeremiah Wright unapologetically black, and unashamedly Christian. So I called his office to have a conversation with him. He was not there. I left word, have him call Reverend Crear. Nobody to him. I go to the Baptist church, ministerial alliance meeting, the secretary comes and says, Pastor Crear, you got a long distance phone call from Chicago. I go to him, I say, hello? Crear? I said, yeah. This is Jeremiah. Jeremiah who? Jeremiah Wright. Jeremiah Wright? Didn't you just call me? I said, yeah. You called me back. Dr. Wright was the kind of pastor that he would stand in the pulpit in an evening service and look in the back and say, Jim, is that you? How your mama doing? So all mega pastors do not fit in that category, but too many of them you can't get to. But we are on the front line of ministry. We're dealing with the mama who got a crackhead daughter or son that's incarcerated. We're dealing with the on-the-ground problems. Now, the contemporary church is failing. We're failing because we're not in tune and keeping up with the temporary world. We're not in tune and keeping up with the temporary world. I don't mean mimicking what we see other people do. I mean using our own spiritual imagination to brighten the corner where we are. That's why we're here today. In this season of my life, the Lord has called me. And let me tell you how he called me to this season. My head deacon, my best friend, the owner of the funeral home that I work for, my buddy, we were just jammed up and jelly tight. Called me in July and said, Pastor, I want to tell you how much I love you. I want to tell you how much I've learned from you. I want to tell you how brilliant I think you are, how you approach ministry. He said, don't die or retire without sharing this stuff with somebody. Okay? And September, the end of September, my brother was in church that Sunday morning, had a stroke that evening, and died that Friday. So I kicked off this Fellowship of Funeral Home Chaplains, which brings together those of us who stand every week and preach funerals. We don't know how to do it. As quiet as it's kept, we don't know how to do it. Okay. Our goal is to provide free grief counseling to anybody. Because black folk ain't going for counseling. The word counseling denotes crazy, so they ain't going. And they want to hold on to their grief because they really think that it's connected to their love. One of the books that you all are going to have opportunity to possess on this journey, I interviewed more than 100 grieving mothers to get 8 meditations for that book. And one of the mothers said to me, she said, I know God can heal me. I know God can make me feel better. I know God can do it, but I don't want him to do it. And I said, why? She said, I'm afraid that if I stop hurting, I'll forget my child. And I responded to her, if the word of God can cut between the marrow and the bone, it can cut between your pain and your memory. We must be equipped to deal with that. So my issue right now is, what is the problem? What's the problem? Why can we not do what we need to do? One is, we don't know who we are as clergy people. We struggle, and the generation come behind us, they messed all up. They're so messed up, they think they can have 5 babies and still have moral authority. They think they can live any kind of way and still have moral authority. They think I can make the church look like the club. They think that let me tell you how confused they are. They go to a Baptist church and put on a Jewish prayer cloth and a Catholic robe. If y'all on the internet, y'all see these fools. If that ain't schizophrenia, bipolar, I don't know what is. And if the leader is confused, those who follow them are more confused. Young man came to me and shook my hand. I'm prophet so-and-so. Praise God. Are you a major prophet or a minor prophet? His response was, all my prophecies are major. I said, nigga, I'm sorry. I'm from the west side of Chicago. Y'all got to forgive me. I'm from the west side of Chicago. You haven't even been to Sunday school to know the difference between major prophets and minor prophets. But you want to pastor somebody's church, and they're impatient. If you don't let me do it, I'll start my own. And the tragedy of that is they'll find some followers. Let me introduce you all to the chairman of my deacon board, Deacon DeMarcus, who just happened to be in Alabama while I'm here. Lord have mercy. Oh boy, it's good to see you. Long story, don't worry about it, it's all right. That's my deacon's oldest son that ran away from Chicago and came to Alabama. Anyway, I asked one who had on the Jewish prayer cloth to explain the tassels. Are you with me yet? He couldn't. Any Kappas in the house? Okay. Any Alphas in the house? Yeah, okay. Any Masons in the house? Okay. If I started talking about riding the goat, you're going to shake my hand. And I got to shake it right. If I ask somebody how far could you swim? See, some of y'all didn't recognize that. Are you with me yet? If I ask you about riding the goat, or if I ask you how far can you swim, and you can't defend it, you have the right to snatch it off of me. If I got the square on my neck and ain't got it in my heart, you have the right to snatch it off of me. Or if I do this and can't defend it. So why do we let people in our church with stuff they cannot defend? Young man had on a rosary, and I simply said, Hail Mary, full of grace, and he could not continue. Take the rosary off. We are the defenders of our faith. We are the gatekeepers. I don't want to pastor. Then why do you want to preach? You want the gravy without the meat? You want the sugar without the daddy? All right. That's another conversation. I'm sorry. I keep digressing. I think I'm still in Chicago. Help me stay on task. I'm in Alabama, ain't I? All right. Keep reminding me. So when it comes to who we are the imago Dei. We are the image of God. Remember when the people came to the disciples and said, we would see Jesus. We want to see Jesus. When people come to church, they're saying the same thing. We want to see, show us some miracle signs and wonders. Show us. Show us. So the confusion is you got Baptist bishops, remember when Baptist folk used to laugh at Methodist folk for having a bishop? A young man, where did you put my water? It was cold water. Y'all find me some more, will you please? Okay. When I was AME, my Baptist friends would laugh at me for bowing to my bishop and surrendering to his every will and whim. And now you got more Baptist bishops, and bishopric void of episcopacy is moot. Let me say that again. I want you to understand this now. Bishopric void of episcopacy is moot. What does that mean, Reverend? If you are a bishop and don't have legal authority over somebody, it's a moot point. When I was AME, the bishop called me on a Saturday night and said, Oscar, tell your people tomorrow, your last Sunday, I'm sending you to Indianapolis. I called home and told my wife, baby, we moving to Indianapolis. And I called my minister of music and said, Phil, we moving. And I packed my family and his family, and we headed to Indianapolis. And we were there until the bishop said, Oscar, I'm sending you to Chicago. I packed my bags and went to Chicago because his bishopric had episcopacy. The word episcopal means power to appoint. And if you don't have power, and let's be real clear, we ain't got no power. We got authority over our congregation, but they have the freedom to come and go as they will. So Baptist bishop to me is a moot point. All right? We got Baptist bishops, you got apostles, you got churches where I'm the overseer and my wife is the pastor. We're suffering from an identity crisis. We're struggling with what to wear in the pulpit. We're struggling with the separation of sacred and secular. When what is sacred looks like what is secular, how do you know when you've been changed? There has to be a line of change. There has to be a point where you don't look like what you used to look like because you don't do what you used to do. And if we cannot find that point, the DeVale used to say that to me all the time. Reverend, are we changing lives? Are we changing lives? What is our purpose? Are we changing lives? Do the church supposed to look like the 401, 2728, the El Dorado Club? See, you didn't think I know nothing about that, did you? Didn't I say in my introduction that I'm back on the red clay of my birth? Okay, I'm up here somewhere in session 1. I'm talking about the Emeo Dei. When we remove, and let me tell you why I'm doing this today. Because sometimes we become dwarfed in the shadow of other ministries and we doubt our own validity. I want to encourage you today that we are on the right path. I ain't giving up my pulpit for a table. I'm not giving up my robe for blue jeans and a t-shirt. I will give up my pulpit when the judge give up his bench. I will give up my robe when the judge give up his robe. I will give up my Bible when the judge gives up his gavel. Because these three things, the judge's bench, the judge's gavel, and the judge's robe, represents the authority of the law. And the pulpit and the podium is the sacred place where the word of God goes forth. And when it loses its power and authority, what do we have? We got to look like we represent God. We got to look like we represent God. I asked one young man, I said, what do your generation hold sacred? Young preacher, what does your generation hold sacred? And I'm still waiting on an answer. Have you seen the YouTube video where the boy was holy dancing on the communion table? Have you all seen that? You saw it? He was holy dancing on the communion table. And I went, my God. Holy dance. Well, I take that back. He was dancing, because if it was a holy dance, it would have recognized the holy place. You know what? Wouldn't it be interesting if God did us like he did in the Old Testament? God was swift. Wasn't no wait to judgment day in the Old Testament. Remember when the Ark of the Covenant slipped and they went and grabbed it and died instantly? Remember when Ananias and Sapphira walked into the room and lied about what they had and what they died? Honey, we'd have an empty congregation if God moved as swiftly today as he did then. We're the church. We're the people of God. We're the image of God. We are in the image of God. Two things I must remember when I stand. One is who I am. I am a messenger of the Most High God. God has allowed me, not because I'm good, not because I'm holy, not because I'm good looking, not because I'm relevant, but because he chose me. I did not choose him. He chose me to preach his gospel. What an honor. I'm humbled. When Dr. Matthews asked me to come, I said, man, I'm humbled that you would invite me to Alabama to share with your friends and your peers. I'm humbled at the very fact. So when God called me to preach, I was humbled. That was between me and my God. I'm not influenced anymore by people. Honey, they talked about Jesus. A young man called me the other day after his third year of ministry, and he was just in tears, Marcus. Two of his deacons rose against him and started a great movement after 3 years to get rid of him. He's 29 years old and really doing a good job. He's preached for us before. I've known him since he was a teenager, because he was a teenager in Indianapolis when I pastored there. Now he's a grown man, and we're friends in ministry. And he called me and said, well, don't worry about it. It's all good. It's all good. It's all good. You don't work for that church. He said, what you mean? You don't work for them? Gardner C. Taylor tells the story that he was in Europe during a real hard time during the Cold War, and that people were trying to get out of Europe. And he got on a plane, and this man sat beside him, white man sat beside him, and began to question him as to how you get a seat on the plane when only certain folk, And he went on to tell him, said, well, I work for this particular company, and my company has got me on this flight to get me out of here. Who do you work for? And Gardner Taylor looked at him and said, I work for God and Son. See, we have to understand that the people that sign our checks are not the people we work for. We work for God and Son. The biggest corporation in the universe. We've got to understand who we are when we stand. The scripture said, don't be afraid of their faces. Any of y'all ever preach your enemy? If you can preach to your enemy, you can stand anything. Yes, sir. You ever shout your enemy? Yes, sir. Jethro Cribbs and I, bless his heart, when I pastored in Davenport, Iowa, we had a fight one Sunday morning. We cussed each other out. We cussed each other. I cussed until I got hoarse. We cussed each other out. And I left the church, and he followed me to the house. We still cussing. I said, Jethro, I got to preach at 3:30, man. Leave me alone. Go on home. He left. Get to the other church. He's sitting on the front row. When I got through preaching, Pastor, we can't be fighting like this. Because that didn't work for him. I work for God and Son. And the scripture said, don't be afraid of their faces. One, you got to know who you are in God. I am the Imago Dei. I am the image of the Almighty God. When I stand, and I don't have to compromise, I don't have to go through changes, I am the Imago Dei. The second thing I must understand is my assignment. Every dying soul to save. Every dying soul to save. Every dying soul to save. That's right. Thank you, baby. You all right with me? You. Every dying soul. What I love about, and I'm glad my deacon is here because he can attest to this. Our congregation is so diverse. I mean, and what I'm proud of, let me tell you what I'm proud of. I'll be 69 in a couple of months. And I'm attracting young adults. And I get tickled. Man, me and DeMarcus standing with our new deacon boy. Man, one spent 16 years in prison. One was a big gang banger. And now they just as dedicated to the Lord as they were to what they were in the street. I can start a fight, Doc. I can start a fight, and me and Marcus ain't got to throw a blow. Sit back. Man, in order to represent God, you got to get rid of all your isms. All your isms. All your isms. Classism. Sexism. What other kind of ism is it? Socialism. Who can be saved and who can't be saved? Who stink and who don't stink? Who got on clothes and who ain't got on no clothes? The church is not homogeneous. We don't pick and choose who can come. We are not spear fishermen. We are net fishermen. Cast your net. And whatever is in it, bring it in. And don't have throwback Sunday. Whatever you catch in that net, you keep. Every dying soul to save, whatever's in that net. Crackheads may be in that net. Whoremongers may be in that net. Same gender-loving people may be in that nest. What you gonna do? I'm glad, honey, when I came to Christ, it wasn't Throwback Sunday. They might have been throwing back dark-skinned people. They might have been throwing back nappy-head people. I'm glad that when I came to Christ, I came to Jesus as I was, weary, worn, and sad. I found in him a resting place, and he has made me glad. We're the image of Christ. We are the image of God. We represent God and Son. And we must remember who we are, and we cannot get it mixed and mingled and blurred line between the world and the folk that want to be celebrity preachers. I don't want to be Joel Osteen. I don't want to be T.D. Jakes. I don't want to be Jamal Bryant. I don't want to be none of them. I want to be Oscar Crear with my own set of gifts and honors that God has blessed me to have. And I walk in that authority because God has gifted me to do some things. And I'm grateful to God. Young man I've known, it was funny, I knew him before he was born. I was on the board of examiners. His mother was coming through the class on ministry, and she got pregnant while she was in the class, so we had to sit her out for a year. But that boy grew up to be a very fine preacher, got a Master of Divinity degree, really great guy. So one day he said, Crear, I want you to come hear me preach, man. I want you to come hear me preach. I said, okay. So I went to this church that he was preaching one afternoon, and when he got through preaching, man, what you think? I said, well, I'll call you. He said, no, man, what you think? I'll call you. He said, you got to understand now, my nickname is Preach, and I earned it. I earned it. My wife even called me Preach. When she mad at me, she still shout. See, that went over your head, didn't it? My wife came to church one Sunday mad at me. My wife was so mad at me, and she didn't care who knew it. She had her arm folded, because she looked mean anyway, don't you, Margaret? That's my wife. She don't take no junk. She don't take no junk off nobody. She was so mad at me that Sunday morning. She sat there, and halfway through the sermon, my wife could clear a pew. She shouted sideways. Cleared the pew. After church, she's still mad. And so my musician, Reverend Carol lost his sister. He's in Minnesota right now preaching her funeral. He went to her and said, Peggy, you still mad? She said, mm-hmm. He said, how you shout like that and still be mad? She said, my pastor preached this morning. I'm mad at my husband. We got to know who we are, who we represent, and we must remember our assignment. That brings us to the close of session 1. He even got a little clock on me. Who your daddy think he is, Dr. Matthews or something? And I think we're supposed to do question and answer. Pastor, am I doing question and answer after the first session? Okay, well, okay, let's okay, take some time, and anything I've said that you want me to kind of elaborate on, or if you got a question that you have experienced that you want some insight on. I don't have all the answers, but, let's see what we can come up with. Yes, sir. What determines sacredness? Okay.
I'm probably the last generation that spent considerable amount of time in church that was indoctrinated by the church. As we go forward, millennials and all the other ones, it gets a little bit kind of, I don't want to say watered down, but that's the best term I have. When we're talking through sacredness, what determines that? Because the communion table was sacred. I grew up Church of God Christ. We couldn't walk across pulpit. We couldn't touch the community.
It represents a special thing.
Right, it represents a special thing. So as we're communicating to this newer generation, how do we set the boundary for what is sacred? Probably would be a better question.
Okay. This generation understands ownership of nothing else. This generation demands respect. If you are a gangbanger, whatever you are, there is an order and a respect that goes with the order. It's interesting how you can understand it when it comes to your stuff, but can't understand it when it comes to God's stuff. Sacred is something that is set aside for a particular purpose, and nothing else can touch it. So then when I say what's sacred in the church, two things that make us distinctively Christian: Holy Communion and Holy Baptism. The Muslims don't do it. The Mormons don't do it. What make us Christian. So then the one thing that makes us Christian is the resurrection and the command that Jesus gave: as often as you do this, you do it in remembrance of me. That makes that table sacred. They understand sacred in other aspects. They understand it to the point of killing you if you disrespect me. They understand it. And sometimes you got to learn that language. You got to bring that language back to them and remind them how you felt when somebody hollered at your girl, because she's sacred to you. That's how I feel when I saw that boy dance on the communion table. That was sacred to me. They need to understand that there are things that belong particularly to God. Now, that's determine what's sacred. The thing that is specifically purposed for God. Crosses are sacred to me. The communion table, the baptismal pool, or the baptismal fount in other Christian denominations. These things are sacred. And when I allow you to disrespect what is sacred to me, you've disrespected me. They understand respect. They understand boundaries. They understand my stuff. They understand that. So don't get ignorant now when it comes to church. Transfer those same allegiances that you had to your gang sign and your gang language. On one side of Chicago, you people. On the other side, you folks. And you got to know where you are. Some kids came to visit my son from Indianapolis and went to the corner store, and I'm sitting on the porch, man. All of a sudden, they were running so fast they ran clean past the house. What up in there talking about people? Dude, you don't know where you on the south side. You in Inglewood. Ain't no people over here. We all folks over here. I'm the pastor. I got that kind of sense. So we cannot allow a generation to pretend to be ignorant. It may not be the same thing, but it's the same concept. Okay. Point number one, you got to understand everybody's human. Every dying soul. That concept must be into who you are. And Two or 3 hours later, this ain't working? Or am I not using it right? Okay. That's fine. And 2 or 3 hours later, police car pull up, grab Paul, throw him in the car, drive off. 45 minutes later, I go to the rib shack around the corner. Paul standing in the rib shack. I said, see, Paul, I prayed and they turned you. Okay. Bishop Brazier was a powerful man. We were in a meeting, and they had asked the commander to come to the meeting. The commander didn't come. He sent somebody. Brazier said, "You can go now. Tell your boss when I invite him, I will him too." Do you know, any of y'all been in Chicago? The Blue Line stopped at Cottage Grove. It used to go to Stony Island, but it interrupted Brazier's worship service. That's how powerful Bishop Brazier was. When Brazier stood one Sunday and spoke against same-gender loving people, he said he couldn't come to his church. He lost 5 families in one night. You hear me? Carla said, if my brother, who is my twin, can't worship with me, then I can't worship you either. Are you know? This is what the scripture talks about when the tare need to grow with the root. Yes, sir.
They can come to church. Can they serve in ministry? Can they teach your Sunday school? Can they teach your worship? Can they preach? Can they,
You want to answer that question? In the words of one of my members in Indianapolis, she came to me. She was really trying to set me up when she came. Reverend, what are we going to do? All these people joining our church. I said, I'm going to line them up Sunday and give them their tithe back. If I can take your tithe, you have the right to serve. Now, can they preach? That's the conversation I must have with them. Okay, can they serve? That's the conversation I must have with them. Don't, and I didn't intend to go down this road, but let me stay on the path just for 30 seconds. You've got to learn that if God can use Balaam's ass, and if God uses you in spite of your inconsistencies, oh, somebody ought to shout right there. Because all of us come to that pulpit with shortcomings. Every last one of us come with shortcomings. If I let the homemonger preach, hello, if I let the man with 5 babies preach, if I let the no good preacher, well, I ain't gonna let him preach, but they're trying to hit on one of my members. I called her in consultation and said, baby, no. I said, you done been in love. Now you in necessity. You got 4 children. You don't need nobody that can't give you nothing. No. Yes, ma'am.
Do you not teach that this is?
Well, you know what? Let's not go down this road. Okay. And the reason I don't want to go down this road, several reasons. If you find me somebody that can live 5 of the 10, and that ain't even in the 10, show me somebody that can live 5 of the 10. and I'll be quiet. Show me a poster child for opposite sex love and marriage. Because all of us that's been married more than a week, then packed our bags, got to the door, and didn't go nowhere. Because the same person that give you goose pimples will get on your last nerve. I don't highlight one sin over another. For all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And I hate to sound stereotypical, God forgive me, but some of the most gifted folk I know, gifted people, and if we can take their tithe and take their gifts, either turn them away or receive all of them. Now because honest to God, I didn't want to go down this road. Let me tell you, me and my deacon, we had to sit down and have a major conversation about who can serve. You come, you shout, you add to the service, you give more than other folk give. You are gifted. Whatever that gift is, you are it. I can depend on you. But then I'm going to have some isms. Oh, no. Somewhere along the line, we got to. When you are comfortable in who you are, who other people are don't bother you. You know, and in terms of sin, all have, don't be mad at me because I don't sin like you. Let me tell this, and then I'm going to answer your question. Let me say this. We had a soup kitchen, and the people who worked in the soup kitchen ate on this side, and the clients, if you will, ate on that side. And so one night, Will was on the side with the people at work. I said, Will, why are you over here? You know you're supposed to be on the other side. He don't know, Pastor, I'm not like them. I said, what do you mean? He said, they drug addicts, I'm an alcoholic. Don't be mad because I don't sin the way you sin. Yes, sir. The question was, do I allow same-gender loving people to serve? And the answer is, all have sinned. And if I'm a line of sinners, I got some that'll be in front of them in line. That's just, I mean, you know, I refuse to beat up every dying soul to save. Every dying soul to save. Honey, that boy testified for every bit of the whole, he testified my sermon time. And then brought the woman up that he was going to marry. Married her, got a beautiful son. You see what I'm saying? And again, go to your family reunion. Every ism you got is there. Yes, sir. Who had the question? Same gender loving. But he said, I will separate. If you're going to read the text, read the whole text. He said, at harvest time, I will separate. Because you're going to ruin the whole harvest snatching up the tare. Then when bread time comes, you ain't got no wheat to grind. Yes, sir. And once again, listen, this is the last, I'm done with that conversation. Okay. 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 Let me tell you my problem with that. My problem with that is not who he loves. My problem is you ain't got no indiscretion. I'm going to dismiss you for not being intelligent and representing what you do. Because let me tell you, I've counseled enough people. All of us just about grown in here, ain't we? All right. No. No, I got to respect the baby. No, just stay right where you are. It wasn't worth saying. Trust me. Ask me later. But no, let me say this. I've counseled enough people to know that what happens in private ain't always common. Everybody got a streak of freak. I'm gonna leave it right there. So when we start, no. His problem was he did not represent the brand. And when you disrespect the brand, I got a problem. When you disrespect the brand, that's when I got a problem. So what if that's what you do? Don't invite me, your pastor, to be your friend on Facebook, and you are being scandalous. I don't want to know. So your dismissing him had nothing to do with his preference, but his intelligence. See, we got to understand the difference between personnel and personnel. What he does is personnel. The fact that he worked for you is personnel. And when it becomes a personnel issue, it's time for the pastor to act. I had a kid that was messing with this girl at church, and some crazy stuff jumped off, and the police called him and said, we need to talk to you, and he called me, and I said, now listen, this is my lawyer's number. Call him and take care of that. I said, because right now, don't nobody know but me. It's personal. But if they come to the church, it becomes personnel. And they came to the church, and I had to dismiss him. Don't take it personal. It's personnel. And we, as pastors, we got to understand the difference. Did that kind of help you with that? Well, okay. I mean, God either takes you from the problem or the problem from you. Well, okay, I'm done with that conversation. Okay, let's now I'm ready for section 2. Okay, all right. Y'all having fun, yeah? Missio Dei. Missio Dei. The mission of Christ. When I stand in the pulpit, I'm very conscious of the fact that I've got Mother Crooms over on this side, and I've got Lorenzo on this side. When you look at my deacon board, who's the oldest person on deacon board? Willie? Willie on the deacon board. Then I've got, what the boy name? No. Who's the young? Oh, Lil James. Lil James. When I look out of my congregation, I got people from every walk of life, every stage of life. So to serve the present age means I got to let Brown do a long metered hymn, and then I've got to let Zay do some contemporary stuff. Because in the 2.5 hour worship, everybody ought to get at least 10 minutes. Everybody ought to get at least 10 minutes. I'm not that excited about some old school stuff. I'm not that excited about some new school stuff, but if I see Mother Croom waving because they're singing her song, and then I see some of the young folk in the back clapping because they're singing their song, when I stand to preach, I am just as obligated to be diverse in my preaching as the music is diverse for the congregation. I am on a mission, and that mission is every dying soul, because everybody gonna die. Every dying soul. That ought to be your forefront every time you are asked to stand and talk about God. Every time you're asked to stand to talk about God, I got purpose in my proclamation. We got 1,000 young preachers in Chicago, 1,000 young preachers, apostle this and prophet that, and evangelist this and evangelist that. And one of the young men, I decided to go to a preaching bowl. If you're not from Chicago, you don't understand. Every New Year's Day, there's a preaching bowl. And it goes from 10 o'clock in the morning to 7 o'clock at night, one preacher after another. Well, you got to be a certain level of preacher and a certain circle of preachers to even get on the preacher bowl. And so a bunch of the young guys who knew they'd never get there started having their own little pseudo bowls. Pseudo bowls. Can I call it a pseudo bowl? And so I'm kind of fond of the kid. He has potential. So I went to support him. And I got a condition. I got a condition. I'm allergic to bad preaching. My legs start itching. No, y'all laughing. Because I promised God and 2 more white folk I would not sit through a bad sermon. I'm allergic to it. So they had all these young preachers. And when I walked in, the pastor, oh, Doc, man, we glad you're here. You're bring us a word tonight. No, this ain't my crowd, dog. I just came to support. And after the second kid got up, the Lord said, yeah, you need to do something. So the pastor came back to me and said, Doc, man, please say something. I said, okay. But I got to go next because I can't take no more. So I stood and took the text, who has believed our report? And to whom is the arm of the Lord revealed? And I used for a subject the purpose of my proclamation. When you stand, you got to have a point you got to make. And that point is to save a soul. It ain't to show what I know. Yeah, I can stand here and speak Latin, Imego Dei, and I can talk about Bonhoeffer and Tillich and Reinhold Niebuhr. And that. Don't nobody know them folk in that congregation but me. So it would do me no good to stand and speak Greek. It would do me no good to stand and, and pontificate, using words they don't know. Like I use the word stuff. And my pastor did a congregation, they came to the pastor, that word just don't, can't you find something else to talk other than stuff? So the next Sunday I got up and I started talking about the vicissitudes of life. Pastor, what that means? Stuff. When I stand, my goal is to lead somebody to heaven. My goal. I'm the man of God on the mission of God. And we can't get caught up, young man, in what's popular. We can't get caught up in mega pastor. What that boy named Carnes? his name? Brian Carr. God has not called all of us to the same thing. Let me go back to that preacher that when he finally talked me into telling him what I thought about the sermon. I said, bro, you have a Master of Divinity degree. You went to school and got a bachelor's. You went to school and got a master's. But when you preached, I closed my eyes, and I did not know whether I was listening to Freddie Haynes out of Texas, Jeremiah Wright, or Jamal Bryan. I said, God did not give you a thought of your own? Come on. If I invite George to be my men day speaker, and I said, George, my men have selected this as a theme, and they have selected you to be the preacher. And you get there and say, I know y'all got this for a theme, but the Lord gave me this. Don't lie on the Lord. If God gave them a theme, gave them your name, if you ask him, he'll give you what to say to them. So when I wake up on Sunday morning, I say, okay, you be there today. You know what they need today. And watch this. Sometimes it may not even come from you. Last Sunday, I knew preach. Out of nowhere. Y'all have, Candy is pure West Side. She's my choir director, hard. Just don't take no stuff. Sweet as she can be, but don't take no stuff and don't play with God. And I told her husband is becoming a deacon. I said, now Candy, on the day that we ordained the deacons, you got to wear a hat. Boy, do you know that went over quite well. But Sunday, Candy had surgery a month and a half ago, and she came back to church, and she sang, my worship is for real. And that girl testified, my God. Well, after that altar call, and I'm getting ready to take my text. And she walked, Pastor, can I? I said, yeah. A member came to church with Bell palsy Sunday. She called that woman down. She said, I want every woman to come and surround her. And she turned to her mother, and said, Mama, the Spirit said, if you pray for her, she'll get healed. And Beverly looked at her like, and she said, the Spirit said, if you pray for her, she'll be healed. Them women went in. I mean, they went in. All I could do is just holler when it was over. But I prayed, Lord, send us what we need today. These are your people. This is your word. This is your house. But now, once again, preachers, prayer, preaching, what gas is to your car. Little prayer, little preaching. No prayer, no preaching. Much prayer, powerful preaching. I don't go in my pulpit without kneeling. Lord, make me worthy to enter this sacred space. Lord, may the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart. God, there have been some Sunday mornings, I need some witnesses right here, where God ain't said nothing. Can we tell the truth? You woke up and God ain't said. Remember when God called Moses to the mountain, it took him 6 days to say anything? Sometimes God just see what you're going to do while you wait. What did Juanita Bynum, what the singer, a young singer over there in the corner, what did Juanita Bynum say? I don't mind waiting. Was that Juanita Bynum or that other lady? Yeah, I don't mind waiting. Lord, these your people. You ain't said nothing on Saturday night. I'm going to bed, and you know what need to happen in the morning. And so I'm going to get some rest. So whatever you decide to do, I'll be ready. And then you wake up and you can't get to your pen and paper fast enough. You don't even take time to turn the computer on because he wake you up. And if you like me, you better write it while he's giving it because it's like manna. It ain't going to keep. We have to understand the mission. Who are they? And what is our responsibility to them? We have what's called an away ministry. And the away ministry keeps up with everybody that's away. Whether your child is in college, whether your child is incarcerated, whether you're in the hospital, whether you're in sick and shut-in list, she makes sure that they get cards. She even put money on DeVale's son's books. Who are they? When I pastored in Peoria, the AME church, you have to purge the roll once a year. And as we were purging the roll, we kept getting to a name that I wanted to scratch off because I didn't know who they were. And the people wouldn't let me scratch it off. So finally they whispered, "That's Sister so-and-so's son, he in jail." Well, why are we whispering? He's a guest of the state. Did they give him life? No. Gave him 10 years. Well, he'll be home soon. We got to make sure. Are you familiar with Prison Fellowship Ministries? Prison Fellowship does what's called the Angel Tree Project every year, where they go to the churches and the churches buy gifts to incarcerated people's children. Well, we blessed the family one year, and Woodlawn was, when I pastored there, they were sedated rich folk. They had money. And they bought big bicycles. I mean, they didn't buy little $50. They bought Nintendos and all that kind of stuff. And so this one family actually became a member of our church. And her boyfriend, who was in prison, wrote me a letter thanking me for representing him with his family for Christmas. He says to me, "I've been looking for a place to send my tithe." Now he in prison. He said, "I've been looking for a place to send my tithe." I didn't respond. Folk putting money on your book. About a month later, he sent me a letter. He said, "Pastor, either you did not get my letter or you think I'm not serious about tithing." Are you with me? And I wrote him back apologizing and saying, "Brother, your tithe is as welcome as your family, and you are in our place." His mama started sending me a money order every month to the church. Do you hear me? Because she was holding his stash. Every dying soul. Everybody, our church is in the funeral home business. we in the funeral home business. And we've learned that every family that got a body that ain't got no insurance is kin to somebody that does. And if I service you well and you ain't got no money, your cousin who got some gonna remember how you treated you, and they will come. The same principle applies when it comes to serving the people. I don't care who they are. If they got a mama, a sister, a brother. We used to do what's called friendship evangelism. When you join church, tell them who your best friends are, and we'll contact your best friends. Because people will stay where their friends are. If I join church and I got more friends in the street than I got in the church, chances are I'm going back to the street. But if I join church and realize that my Johnny, and watch this, the average person ain't going to leave if they brought somebody. The average person is not going to leave if they brought somebody. Who are they? You know, we good at turning up our nose, ain't we? Indianapolis Church, and I thank God for itinerant ministry. I've pastored in every genre. I thank God for it. We did the soup kitchen on Wednesday night, and we were downtown. We were literally downtown, right around the corner from the bus station. And When people come to the bus station indigent, there's a black church around the corner. So we dealt with all kinds of people. And through the soup kitchen, eventually I stopped my workers from eating over here. I need every worker to go eat with the people and evangelize. And and Pete, the church custodian, would go to the mission every Sunday morning, load the van up, and come back to church. Well, I've been, Lord, I need some men. Lord, I need some men. Lord, I need. One Sunday, Bear-mouthed Will got up, and behind Will, there were 17 men that joined church at the same time. Because Will led the way. Well, when the bishop moved me, the new pastor did not marry that couple. So we were back in Indianapolis for our general conference. Down the street, me and some of my dignified preachers with our alligator shoes, and a homeless man jump up out the street, preach, and hugs me. And after I got him off of me to see who it was, I said, Will, and I hugged him. When I went to Woodlawn, Judge Johnson's son was a severe crackhead. And I began to talk about who are they? They our people. And he said, Pastor, I got hope because you got hope. Well, Johnson died before his son came around. But today his son is apostolic pastor. Who are they? And we have to look at people in two lights. We raise chickens. We raise chickens. If I had known the eggs going to cost as much they cost now, I'd still be raising chickens. Have you seen the price of eggs? My God. We would go out to the yard and get the egg. And we had to look at that egg in one of two ways. Immediate gratification or extended potential. That egg can be my breakfast and fill me up right now. Or I can leave it under the hen to produce another hen. They'll produce more eggs. They'll produce more hens. They'll produce more eggs. When we look at people, well, if you're on the road now, I can get some grant money for you. Rather than saying, maybe there's a preacher in you. Maybe there's a teacher in you. Maybe there's whatever. Either immediate gratification or extended potential. Who are they? You ain't got to go to the moon to get nobody. Stand out in front of your church, they'll pass by. And we have to decide, do we do barnacle evangelism? What's a barnacle? It's a fish that attaches itself to the hull of a ship. And if something comes by, he'll eat it. If not, he'll starve to death. Okay? If something just happened to come by, he'll eat. He's not a scavenger. He ain't going hunting. And that's why many of our churches die. Because we think whatever comes by, we'll get. But we ain't going looking for none. We're not going to say to Sally Sue, your daughter is incarcerated. Can I get on her visiting list? You know? If you take care of the old folk and the young folk, the middle-aged folk will come. You take care of my mama, and you take care of my children. Those of us who are in, come on, Eric Erickson, the 8 stages of life, the 8 stages of human development. There's a place in there where you making money, where you are the provider for your mama and your children. Anybody in that place? Where you got your old folks you got to take care of and your children you got to take care of. And if somebody is kind to your mama and somebody kind to your children, they got you. Who are they? They belong to our people. Everybody in your church is connected to some unsaved people. Our attitude, get rid of the ism. Get rid of the ism. And watch what God does for you and your people. You just be surprised. Vernon, let me tell Vernon's story. What time is it, baby? Okay. Oh, okay. Is that 23 seconds or 23 minutes? Okay. Let me tell Vernon's story. Vernon could drink a fifth of Grey Goose, roll a blunt in a smoke-filled car in a dark alley and not drop a crumb, and stand straight to the preacher. I ain't been drinking. I would drop Vernon off at school, and before I get back to the house, he done beat me there. My wife said, "Preach, why do you treat Vernon different?" I said, "Something about Vernon. Something about him. Something about him. Something about him." I took Vernon to school one day, and he accidentally stayed. And the day he stayed, they gave the state standardized test. That fool scored third in the building. And he was not going to graduate because he needed some credits. In Chicago, there's something called America School. I went and bought the books. They let you do the work at home while you're in regular school, and the regular school accepted it. So he would graduate with his class. He did graduate with his class. But he liked little white girls. Now, say, well, I don't care who agrees to me or don't. I don't do that. Don't bring no little white girl to my house. Don't bring no white boy to my house. It's just that simple. Now, that's my ism. They ain't at my house. Let's start there. Let's start there. And so, Vernon liked white girls. Vernon liked white girls. And at my age, I don't care who agrees with me no more. I'm so tired of trying to convince folks. I am who I am. It is what it is. The day he graduated, I rented a van, put all his stuff in it, had already made the call to Alcorn State University. I said, "I'm bringing you one." I drove straight to Mississippi and dropped him off. He now has a PhD, married to a black dentist, running $1 million dental practice down in Mobile, Alabama. Extended potential. She got a job when she finished dental school. She got a job working for a dentist whose best friend had a dental practice in Mobile, or just outside of Mobile, had a stroke and couldn't practice anymore. His friend bought the business from him and sent her there to run it. Now, if I had held against him, you come from a single family, you smoke weed, you drink alcohol. Vernon and his girlfriend came to me when they were 16 years old and said, "Pastor, I'm pregnant." I'm a pro-lifer. I'm a pro-lifer. So I said, "Well, okay, now let's go to your mama." We went to her mother, and her mother said, "You know, whew, glory to God, my next calluses on my soul, the stuff that we stack on top of stuff, and once you start unpeeling, you'll be surprised what you find." We went to that girl's mother, and her mother confessed and said to her, "I'm not going to do to you what my mama did to me." She said, "When I got pregnant at your age, my mama made me have an abortion." That blew my mind. She said, "So whatever you want to do." Again, now we're talking about immediate gratification versus extended potential. Okay? The girl said, "Mom, I don't want a baby." So the mother said, "Pastor, I said, I'm not in this conversation. That's what I think ain't got nothing to do with your life. This is your reality, not mine." She had an abortion. She now has 2 master's degrees and running a program for young girls. And Vernon has a PhD. Ministry ain't easy. It takes a great deal of discernment and prayer. Who are they? And what is our responsibility to them to serve the present age? Every dying soul to save and fit it for the sky. Because you and I both know that who we are now ain't who we were at 16. Will you be a witness to that? That who we are now. We've learned a lot in life. We made some mistakes. We bumped our heads. God knows we got some, you know. The only reason I don't have regrets is because I learned something from every head bump. I learned something. I walked away with a little more wisdom than I had going in. Who are they? So let's do some question and answer, because the Great Commission is to go ye therefore. We know the commission. That we don't have to even have a conversation about the commission. If you've been called to preach, you know, go ye therefore into all the world, preaching my gospel. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. I'm curious about the conversation you had with the young preacher who had the struggles of the rumors and naysayers pulling against him in ministry. What advice did you give him?
Find someone.
The more seeds he planted to pull people in, he may have had the crowd trying to diminish that, and maybe it's spreading words, people not coming to the church.
Let me say this to you, that my daddy set me down for 6 months. I was a popular young preacher, 14, 15 years old, pretty much a novelty. Everybody wanted to hear this little, and gifted. Can I say that? And gifted. And people invite me all over the city. And Daddy said, how are you preaching what you don't know? And he made me sit beside him for 6 months. I couldn't go anywhere. For 6 whole months. And people calling. And we were poor. I needed them little love offering. Still need them. I tell anybody, young preachers, sit somewhere. Sit long enough to get your feelings hurt. Sit long enough to bump your head. Because home is a safe place to bump your head. I tell men all the time, don't get mad because your son tried you. Every boy gonna try his daddy. Every boy going to be about 13, 14 years old. I feel sorry for you, man. If your son ever decided to try, he may win. That's a big one. But listen, the safety in it is this, that if I try my daddy, he ain't gonna kill me. An inch, but he ain't gonna kill me. But if I try the Negroes in the street, they will kill me. So I tell young preachers, go out there if you want to, you'll be back. Sit still somewhere and let somebody pour into you. Ain't no perfect preacher. But if they have your best interest at heart, what is our responsibility to them? To teach them. Teach them. Love them. Show them something they can use. One Sunday D, I caught myself doing this. See, my daddy was an itinerant Methodist preacher, and he would not let us join his church. He made us join the little local Methodist church in Ishkuta. And Reverend J.W. Michael was my pastor. And J.W. Michael walked from Gracilla Heights to Ishkuta for years. His first car was a 1960 Buick. Big, was it brown? Okay. And his office was his car. Once he got a car, he went back to school, got a degree, started teaching school down in Camden. That said to me, if he can walk from Gracilla Heights to Ishcooter to pastor, that said a lot about that man. Do you hear me? That said a lot about him. And he was faithful to the church in Gracilla Heights and the one in Ishcooter on his feet. And when my mama died, he said to me, Oscar, I thought maybe you want to preach your mama's funeral. No, dog, you've been her pastor longer than I've been her son. You know? But when he would really get into his hoop, he on this side of the pulpit and scoop it. Then go back on the other side and scoop it. I'm 68 years old, and that still resonates. My daddy was not a hooper. Daddy never raised his voice. Wherever his feet was when he started, that's where they were when he finished. But he was a master illustrator. He walked in the pulpit with a carburetor and preached, "Give me a clean heart." He walked in with a salt shaker. We are the salt of the earth. And when he got through slinging salt, when my brother was killed in Vietnam at Players Chapel, Anniston, Daddy drug a 6-foot ladder in the pulpit and preached, "We are climbing Jacob's ladder." When a young preacher can sit still, he will learn stuff that will stay with him. I still preach my dad's sermon, "The Missing Link Between God and Man." Jesus Christ, the only mediator. And he had an old rusted chain on this side and a brand new chain on that side and a lap link in his pocket. See, if you ain't never plowed, you don't know what a lap link is. Are you with me today? Are you with me? And when he get to the celebration of the sermon, he pulled that rusted chain representing man and his sin, and that new chain representing God and his purity, and pulled that lap link and hooked them together. Man, but I holler when I preach. I holler a little bit when I preach it. But the point I make is to young preachers, I tell them all the time, because my heart aches today for a young preacher that I took in, and he got caught up in the flare. And he went to a ministry. Now they have ordained him, consecrated him as senior adjutant. Spell it. What is its function? Dr. Matthew Stevenson, and not only teach them, but be fair to them. Yes, I drove up at a concert one night. It was cold. This guy standing out there with no coat on, blocking a parking space. I said, "Man, it's cold out here. What?" He said, "I'm saving this for my pastor." Maybe you all have heard of Dr. Matthew Stevenson out of Chicago. Well, I was done when I saw his webpage that said, "My honorariums are non-negotiable." I didn't go any further. I was done. But nevertheless, your pastor loved you so much, he got you standing in the cold. Something wrong with that. Something wrong with that. I would never have Lil Jane standing in the cold, waiting on me to get there. Just some things you don't do to young preachers. Who are they? We must see them in light of their immediate gratification or their extended potential. And lastly, to answer that, God holds us accountable for those he put in our care. And the warmest place in hell is reserved for preachers who misuse and abuse who God has given to their care. Yeah. Any other questions? How much time I got? We better eat?
Hey everyone, let's go ahead and give Pastor Crear a hand. I want to thank everyone once again, please, I pray that you brought an appetite. Amen.
Amen. You don't need to eat nothing. Look at you. How many babies you got?
In your workbook, I want you to see the page where it's talking
Boys, girls.
If you have met someone here today, try to
How old is the oldest one? And the baby is
and write down their name,
same girl?
number,
3 different girls?
network. That's what this
Two
is
different.
about. This is about fellowship. It's about network. And so I pray
You through now? You through now?
that you'll be able to have made a new
No, you've always been one of my favorites. I ask your mom and dad about you all the time. Yeah, you're working hard.
come up here because this is the shortest prayer I know to bless the children. Come on. He's not going to say, good Lord, good meat, come on, let's eat. But he's not going to hold all the time either.
And while we're eating, I'll present the other books that I've got. We'll go. Yeah.
Let us pray. God, we do thank you for this day. Yes, Lord. Thank you for the food that we're about to receive. We pray that you will bless the hands that prepared it, Lord God. And please, God, we just ask now that you would just watch out for those who do not have what we have, God, and teach us each day, Lord God, to reach out and help them. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
First lady,
It's so good to see you. Thank you. You know, really, the Lord fixed this, didn't he? I don't care where you are. It's good to see your people. I don't care how other people treat you. It's good to see your people. Because that's what DeVale would have done. Good to see you. Okay, yeah. I ain't got my phone on me. Okay. Yeah, so you enjoy it? Huh? I'm not. I got family, my sister, my niece. My brother drove me over here. That's my brother, the big bald head guy. That's my oldest brother. He drove me over. I flew into Atlanta. It was cheaper. And so we got up this morning and he drove me over. They're going to stay the rest of the weekend, drive me back to the airport. Yeah. Well, the only time we get to hang out is when I'm preaching down south, and he comes and I fly to Atlanta and we drive. When I went to see Lattimore's son, that's who picked me up and drove me. Yes, sir. Amen. Okay. It's a whole different animal. So I wrote this little booklet called Wow. They asked me to officiate, preach, eulogize, what to do when you're not sure what to do. And it walks you through what I do, especially when I'm preaching films for people I don't know. And 90% of the films I do are people I don't know. That's part of my job as a funeral home chaplain, is to preach films for people I don't know. And so I put this together. I have these for sale. These are for sale. Lord, Thou has been our dwelling place. I wrote this 10 years ago, and it's still a relevant book. We did what was called an educational conference on grief. And what I realized that between the time that a person is violently killed and the time they're put in the ground, the family will deal with approximately 8 professionals: the police, the doctor, the mortician, the cemetery, the preacher. And I called all those people together, social workers and everything. Man, it was almost a free-for-all because everybody defended their position. Nobody heard anybody else talk. The police need to understand that when I arrived, not only is this a crime scene, but it's a grief scene as well. And probably the third grief scene on this block this week. And so what I did was I interviewed professionals and came up with some clue as to what families can expect. And I think pastors who read this can walk with grieving families better than they would if they did not. Okay? So this one and this one is for sale, and Pastor has my other one, and he's going to do whatever he needs to do with it. So just see me as the day go on. All right, I'm going to eat too.
Missionary Baptist Church.
He's a member here. Are you a good as the director of evangelism for the 4th District of the AME Church, covering 5 states in Canada. And the Bible talks about becoming all things to all people. And one of the challenges of being a black pastor is you become the unofficial counselor. You become the unofficial counselor. And they really expect you to know everything. And I pride myself in being a pseudo-intellectual. I'm not a certified intellectual. I'm a pseudo-intellectual. And I did not know what an intellectual was until I had a church member that had a PhD in intellectualism from Northwestern University. And I found out that an intellectual is a person that can have a conversation in any school of thought. That they're well-versed in any school of thought. So I kind of pride myself in being that, and I do a lot of studying, a lot of reading, a lot of research, a lot of looking stuff up. So whatever my people bring to me, I got some kind of thought on it. I even read people I don't like. Me and Michael Eric Dyson, I've walked with him through his changes in life. When Mike first came out, I don't know whether you're familiar with Michael Eric Dyson. His first book was called Race Rules. Excellent book. And then he got into bed with the rappers and just went crazy. And I couldn't follow him then. But he's now turned that thing around for me. And I would declare him to be the black theological intellectual, even more so than Cornel West. Would you agree with me there? Me and Cornel he used to, Yeah, he used to really be my go-to intellectual. But when Obama became president and he got into bed with Tavis Smiley, I just said, you know what? I'm done. I'm done. So Mike Dyson is my intellectual, if you will. And a college professor is an intellectual because they can teach in any course on the college, on the university campus. We may not be certified intellectuals, but our people expect us to know something about everything. Because you got everything in your congregation. Come on now. Let's tell the truth. I am a realist. I cannot operate in this la-la land and pretend like the young people in my church don't smoke weed. I cannot pretend that they're not having unprotected sex, which opens the door to disease and pregnancy. I cannot pretend that this man who is married didn't make a pass at that woman who was married in my congregation. I can't pretend that. I cannot pretend when your wife caught you that you loaned her that money. I can't, I refuse to live in a fictitious world that does not exist. When I look at them 35 babies coming out of children's church to take communion and realize that the majority of them got from single mamas, I can't say they dropped them off the moon here at New Tiberia. They were bred and born right here. So I have to be a realist. I have to examine stuff. I have to, and since we are in the business of every dying soul, you become a soul therapist. You got to be able to meet people at the point of their soul. And Nicholas Cooperluder, in his book Black Grief and Soul Therapy, diagnoses the problem as a hole in the soul, which means that my heart fits in a place in my chest, my lung fits in a place, my kidney fits in a place, and there's a place in my being that is shaped just like God, and nothing can fill it but God. That's where we come in. That's where we come in. You know, I don't want to go there, but let me go back there anyway and say some things that when we start talking about same gender loving people, there was a time when a woman couldn't come in the pulpit. Just last year at the National Baptist Convention, they walked out on a woman preaching. Okay, earlier this year. So the whole issue is we got to be realistic. God does call women. And some of them are more qualified than some of the brothers. As quiet as it's kept, and strange as it may be. I got 2 female assistants. One is preaching for me tomorrow. You have to be real. What do you, and I said this when a couple of us were talking, but let me say it in the group. What do you do when Jane is pregnant and Jane gives birth, and Jane and Lucas are husband and wife, both of them gainfully employed, living right, coming to church, give birth. And they give birth to little Richard. And at age 5, he starts showing feminine tendencies. At age 7, they're more profound. By age 10, he's switching with a high-pitched voice. You gonna go to those parents and say, y'all can't come to church no more? I live in a real world. I'm sorry, I live in a real world. And as the pastor, somebody said, what do you counsel them? Listen, in the words of Dr. Hargrove at Great Lake Bible College, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Love them to death. Love them, love them, love them, love them, love them, love them. Because until your child grow up, and it come in your house. My wife and I took care of a baby at 2 months old. And we raised her till she was 6 or 7. And I gave her back to her mother. My wife almost divorced me for giving that child back to her mama. Almost. I was in Alabama or Atlanta, someplace at a conference, and my wife called me and she said, "Preach, Keisha been on my mind. Can we find her?" I said, "Well, call the people that knew her family and figure out." By the time I got to Louisville, my wife calls me and says, "Keisha is in Murfreesboro, Tennessee." I said, "Doggone, if I had known that just an hour or so earlier, I'd have swooped through." So we found her. She said, "Dad, can I come to Chicago?" I said, "Yes, you can come, baby." I bought her a bus ticket. I go to the bus station, and I'm walking around looking for her. Now, she's half Mexican and half black. Last time I saw a beautiful, long hair, beautiful little girl. And finally somebody said, "Dad." And I turned, this stud was standing there.
First you got to know the term stud.
this masculine female, looking like a dude. And if it weren't for her eyes, I wouldn't have recognized her. So I embraced her. We got in the car, and the only thing I said was, you know, Peggy coming to church tomorrow, and she ain't gonna see you till she get there. You ain't got nothing a little softer? So we went shopping, and I bought her a gender neutral outfit. And yeah, gender neutral outfit. It was a pantsuit that, you know, did not insult who she was. And so, long story short, she stayed with me in Chicago for a while. She ended up staying with my wife and other kids for a while. And then I sent her to a thing called Lincoln Challenge so she could graduate high school. She joined the reserve and all this kind of good stuff. She's in Ohio now with a girl that she's been with for almost 10 years. She's soft. She's softened back up and looks really, you know. Hear my story before you come to my conclusion. And she finally said, Dad, thank you for not criticizing me. She said, when I was 9, Mama's husband started messing with me. And I started putting on boy clothes to distract him. To distract him, invited other elements. So that's how she got into life. A straight man pushed her over there. Yes, sir.
When is correction? Because correction is love. So when does correction becomes criticized?
Correction comes when you think somebody's wrong, or when that person thinks they're wrong. Let's be realistic. This is people's reality. This is people's reality. This is how they perceive the whole world. This is who they are. And for me to come and say to you that your name is misspelled, that's been your name, Mycael, all your life. I'm going to come and, no, that ain't right. Your name is Michael. I pastor in a real world. Let me tell you something. Have y'all seen the movie Barbie? It is an excellent movie in existentialism. You got to look at it. They, Barbie, Miss Malibu Barbie, and about 20 minutes into the movie, Barbie stops and asks all her partying friends, what happened if I die? Bam, reality hit them. We all gonna one day die. You, as pastors, we got to live in the reality of the assignment of the people that God has given us. If you have not taken a course in human sexuality, take it. If you have not done the research in hermaphroditism, do it. Before you look at somebody's child and want to correct them. You live in your reality. One of the boys I raised, I tried to help that girl with her kids. I can't get mad because they smoke weed. Their grandmama smoke weed. Their uncle and aunt smoke weed. Their mama and daddy smoke weed. So when they lived with me, I had to look at my phone. Weed man. And I bought it for them because I didn't want them out on the street trying to get it. In Chicago, you got to know your weed man.
Listen.
That's my reality. When Greg was in prison, I stood in the congregation on Sunday morning. So y'all pray for Greg. He locked up. And 15 other people stood and said, pray for my child too. Pray for my child too. We cannot live in a fictitious, imaginary world. I preached in Detroit. And I talked about when Greg got shot and how the Lord blessed and how I reacted and how I responded. The pastor's wife hit the floor, passed out. After church at dinner, she said, thank you for sharing that story. When our child got shot, my husband wouldn't let me tell nobody. And I carried the burden of that child being shot. Testimony will help somebody. We walk around here like our little worlds are so perfect. Our little world ain't got no problem. Me and my wife don't fight. My children are good children. My son on his way right now to 420. See, she on the. Are you in law enforcement? You in law enforcement? Oh, my daughter ran the Marion County whole jail complex. Yeah. 420. National Weed Day. They got puff and paint. If you're going to be a pastor, you better wake up. Because let me tell you, in this book right here, I described that some days I walk into a funeral with Chicago Police Department as my armor bearers. Do you hear me? One night, nothing but the grace of God had me to stand. I saw the boy. He stood up and upped. And all I could say is, put the babies on the floor. Put the babies on the floor. But the undercover police were on the pew behind him and got him before he could get the gun up. I preached film where the murderer have been in the congregation. You could Google the rapper in Chicago that had his mama killed. I preached her funeral. The Negro didn't even come out the balcony. And the only reason they called him because the man he hired to kill his mama, he didn't finish paying him. But in order to preach to those congregations, I got to know stuff. If your crime rate has up, see, if you love folk, they'll let you correct them. You see what I'm saying? If you love them, let you say, this one guy, bless his heart, grew up from this age, got big enough when they first made same-gender loving legal. He went and married some old guy, and I said, listen, come here. Get out of that mess. Get out of it. Just get out of it. Walk away from it. This is not what God has for you. Get out of it. He didn't listen. Next thing you know, he was a porn star. The man had drugged him into that world. Then he called me. Pastor, because I showed him love, he could call me. Do you hear me? One of the key things in dealing with people, you got to know empathy. I got to feel with you. I got to know what you feel. Going through the motion without emotion is a waste of time. So when we talk about the diagnosis, there's a part of God that's missing. You got school-age children? Who got school-age children? School-age children. I bet you 90% of their friends are unchurched. Are unchurched. Don't know Jesus. Their mama don't know Jesus. Their grandmama don't know Jesus. So how do you raise a moral-based child when 90% of their friends, huh?
That's something I question myself my church mama.
Well, you said that. I'm not going to bother that. But because, let me tell you why I'm not going to bother that. Okay, I raised 4 boys other than my own. And because the neighborhood that we lived in the hood, and none of them had daddies. My son was the only one that had a daddy 24/7. So they migrated to our house. 4 of them I ended up keeping. Rob, because his mama said, Lord have mercy. Let me tell you the beginning of that story. It's really funny. I said to Alex, I said, okay, Alex, come on, get home from school. We got to go get you some shoes. So we got ready to go, and Rob was with him. So Rob jumped in the car. So we get to the shoe store, and I had a flashback. Remember Miss House? They used to come from New York, get Scooter. She took her boy shopping, and I went, and she bought me shoes too. So I looked at that boy's feet and said, damn, you need some shoes too. So I bought him shoes. The weather changed, so it's time to buy boots. Alex, come straight home from school tomorrow. We need to go get you some boots. Okay. Here come Rob. Robert, he had 3 of his siblings. I bought 5 pair of boots that day. His mother came to me and she said, since you do so much for my son, go ahead and claim on your income tax. And I claimed that boy for 5 years. And we just buried his mom a couple of weeks ago. But that boy, he's my child. So I raised 4 boys. Vernon, the one that's the PhD, Vernon wouldn't go home. Vernon, go home. Vernon, go home. Vernon wouldn't go home. I took Vernon home, walked in the house, 1 bed, 1 couch, mama, her boyfriend, and 6 children. I said, Vernon, you ain't got to go home, son. So I ended up, so I raised 4 other than my own. The point I make is this. As pastors, you're going to run into all kinds of people who do not know God. Other sheep have I that are not of this fold. How you going to fix them if you don't love them? How you going to fix them? He that is without sin cast the first. So then, you have to prepare yourself to be the counselor. You have to prepare yourself in you got to know Tupac, you got to know Nelly, you got to know Mary J. Blige, you got to know Beyonce's song, Just Don't Forget I Was Here. You got to be able to quote these people. You got to be able to say something to connect. Because I've seen preachers get up and in 5 minutes of the eulogy, people walk out. Nobody walk out on me. No, they don't. Because coming in the door, hey man, let me hit that. Coming in the door. Now listen, dude. Why you got Henny in the church? Put that in the car and we'll meet after service. Of course I don't hit it. Of course I don't meet. Says to them, this man respects. You ain't got to agree with it to respect it. Let me tell you, I parked my Mercedes on the street when I lived in the hood. Do you hear me? I get off work at 3:30 in the morning. My routine, sometimes I park across the street, go in the store and get my cookies, come back around the corner, go upstairs to my apartment. One night I got out of the car, as I went to the store, 2 guys that I did not recognize were standing on the corner. When I came out of the store, they were not there. When I turned the corner, they were there. Drug dealer on his bicycle across the street. Hey, let me holler at you. I go over there. He said, you all right? I said, yeah, I'm good. So by the time I got to him, I was past them. So I went back across the street. I was past them. And then they said, hey, I said, no, dog, I'm good. I ain't got no more nephews. And I went on upstairs. The next day, that drug dealer said to me, he said, did you know them? I said, no. I said, did you know him? He said, no, but I wasn't going to let him mess with you. I'm old. I'm forgetful. Have you ever gotten out the car and forgot to take the keys out? Yes, sir. 3 o'clock in the morning. To get to my back door, you got to climb the fence because the gate locked. Come up 3 flights of stairs. Somebody banging on my back door. 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm going, and I cuss. I'm the only one in my mama chewing cuss. Ain't that something? But I'm the only one that pastors. love it. I love it. And so I'm saying some choice words as I get to the door. And I open the door. Why you? Dang, Pete, you just gonna give the car away? He gave me the keys to my Mercedes. Because I buy his weed. I don't smoke. I can't stand the smell of that mess. But I contribute to the local economy. No. It sounds crazy. But if I'm going to live among them, they respect what I do. I respect what they do. And in the time of need, they come running to me. When one of them gets shot and killed, preacher, you know, man got killed. Preacher, you know, baby got killed. His mama want to know. You know, we work for a funeral home. You stab him, we grab him. Okay. All right. So the point, I'm going to become a stand-up comedian when I retire. Okay. What people are going through before you can pull them out. Can I say that again? I got to know what you're going through before I can pull you out. I got to know your husband hit you upside the head without judging you for staying with him. Are you with me? Old lady come to church every Sunday with 2 big bags. And one Sunday she said, Pastor, I left my bag at home. Can you take me back? I said, well, church going to start in about 30 minutes. She said, Pastor, I need you to take me back home. I put her in my car and took her back home. She got her bag and came on back to the car with 2 bags. I said, now explain to me why you needed those bags. She said, because my grandchild lives with me. And when I leave home, I take everything that's valuable with me. You got to understand where your people are in order to counsel them, in order for them to trust you with their souls that has a hole in it. And listen, grief and trouble are curable. Now, one more point. You got to learn a new language. There's a book that is called Not Only Represent, but Represent Christ. You got to learn how to represent Christ. We don't do grief counseling. I do conversations after the repast. And more people come to conversations after the repast than they do to grief counseling. I'm doing the same thing. I'm just renaming it and repackaging it so that it be palatable to people. One of the things my daughter did, my daughter got a $8 or $9 million grant for her jail because all the inmates she had under 25 years old. And there was a study that shows that the frontal lobe of the brain that controls rational thinking does not fully develop until you're 29, 28, 29, 30 years old, which means all these kids that committed crimes were not mentally capable of not committing the crime. And with that, she was able to get mental health professionals in the jail 24/7. We got to understand what sickness is. You hear old folks talking about sin sick? That's a reality. Some folks sin because they just can't help themselves. That's why we come in, preachers. That's what God has called us to do. But you got to study. You got to read books. You got to go to seminars. You got to do what we're doing today so that we can go back better equipped. Let me tell you what you did for me today. Let me tell you what you did for me today. It is so good when your people can see other people responding to you. So when I told him where I was going to be, he said, Pastor, that's right down the street from my mother-in-law. I'm coming. So now he'll go home and say, they had Pastor's name on the marquee. No, I mean, it means a lot to me, and I'm grateful to you for that. So, listen, those books that I recommended, Black Grief and Soul Therapy by Nicholas Cooper-Luter. Do you have that on those books? Okay, yeah. And there was one more, Charles Gerkheim, I think. It's called The Living Human Document, which means I learn from my patients. And you can learn from your members. You'll be surprised what they'll teach you. Because I had to pull one aside and say, what's a thought? So now I can say thought in the sermon. You see what don't be afraid to speak the language of the generation you're trying to win. But now let me give this disclaimer. In the name of God, when you use it, do not use it in a condescending way. Let it flow, because I've heard preachers try to be hip and mess up so bad. They don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Once they know how much you care, they will come to you. You ain't got to go looking for them. You ain't got to call them in the office, let me talk to you. No. They will come to you, and they will say, Pastor, this is what's going on. Girl called me, I was in the airport, and she said, Pastor, my boyfriend just beat the snot out of me. I said, I told you he was going to do that. I told you that when I saw you messing up over there. I tried to catch you. I said, okay, call Sister Darlene, tell Darlene to come and get you, and you stay at Darlene's house until I get back. And when I get back, I'm going to that Negro's house. And I told you, and I'm going to take Dave, who spent 16 years as a guest of the state, and I'm going to take Sharon's husband, James, big old burly Negro. And we're going to put dude in his place. We do drive by that school. Let her mama call me and tell me her child messed up in school. The men of the church go to the school. Call Johnny out of class right quick. We need a meeting. And when you do stuff like that, people will respect you as more than just the preacher. You're the pastor. You're the soul therapist. You're the one that care about their daily walk. What I preach on Sunday, work on Wednesday. If not, I'm wasting my time. It's all for nothing. Now, what we doing now? The last.
We're going to skip the 15-minute break. Y'all want to keep going?
And be done.
I was looking at the Nicholas Cooper-Luter book
Mm-hmm.
on Amazon. You know, they were selling it for like $180-something. My pockets ain't that deep, so I'm trying to figure out if you do.
Let me tell you, I found it. The one I got, my secretary found it online, and she's a good. If you know somebody that really know how to navigate the internet, she found that one for $25. You got to find somebody who really knows how to navigate stuff.
I get in my IT bag. I just wanted to
Yeah.
want to make it be known it's not, you know.
Yeah. Okay. And
Mm-hmm.
cause I suffered a house fire, 4 years ago maybe? I lost everything but my dog and my briefcase. So all my books. They wouldn't even let me back in the building. All my books were gone. Just rebuilding my library, and that was one of the books. And the other book, the Living Human Document, it's going to be hard to find as well, by Gerkheim. But if you got a college bookstore, for example, I go to the University of Chicago bookstore. They got a good used section and a new section. Listen, you can't beat a reader. Please read more than the Bible. Please read more than the Bible. Because the more you know, the better you can serve people. You know? Because and I'm going to say it, DeMarcus' son was born in our congregation. He's 15 now and full-blown flamboyant. One of the best dancers I got. When Barack danced, everybody stopped. And he's an anointed dancer. And we know, same gender loving. I had a man one time, I put him over the young men's ministry. He came to my office drunk that night. Drunk. Crying and drunk. Pastor, I can't be over the young men's ministry. I said, why? What's the problem? You see my son, I failed him, he's gay. You didn't fail him, is he still in your house? He said, yeah, you still feed him every day? Yeah. You buy his clothes every day? Yeah. You love him? Yeah. How did you fail? We got to get rid of, and I tell my son, like I tell everybody else's son, if she's a chicken head now, she was a chicken head when you did it.
That's true.
She didn't go crazy yesterday. And can I be transparent for 30 seconds? My son is with a fool. I pull my gun on her. Oh, no, we don't do that. Had her boys beat him up. And he back over there. I ain't coming to get you no more. And I meant that. Because we love kids like we loved our other grandkids. You know, we loved her. But none of that mattered. She's of that frame of mind. And once you pull a gun, that changes the game. And my daughter, being a sheriff, couldn't go. I got, hold on. I drove down from Chicago. Baby, you know, 'cause my daughter had an old no good boyfriend who worked for the sheriff's department. Had her on mental lockdown. And my wife called and said, Preach, you need to come see about Tanisha. She's been in my house for 4 days and won't go home. I said, so I talked to my daughter. I said, okay, no problem. I called Dude, me and my boys are getting in the car. Get your out of her closet and leave the key on the table. I called the sheriff's department to the chaplain. Say, get the captain on the phone. Because if you work for the sheriff's department, you cannot have a domestic at your address and keep your job. Ain't no if and ain't no conversation. If there's a domestic at your address, that ends your employment. I got the captain on the phone and said, listen, it's going to be a domestic at my daughter's address. It ain't her. He said, Reverend, I've been waiting on you to come down here because we see how he treat her. Do you hear me? Baby, when me and 2 carloads of niggas from the west side arrived in Indianapolis, the key was on the table. Because he knew I wasn't playing. You got to understand the people. You got to understand who we're called to serve. And don't be ashamed if your family caught in the net. Because your example of how you handle stuff. Kid said to me when my building burned down, he said, you walking around here like ain't nothing happened. I said, the Lord giveth, and the Lord taketh away. And Michael, within 3 weeks, I was 100%. Do you hear me? 100. The only thing I did not recover were my books. But let me tell you, kid called me and said, Preach, I got a problem. I said, baby, this ain't my weak down to nobody else's problem. He said, but Preach. I said, okay, what is it? He said, man, my furniture is storage. And if I don't get it out tomorrow, they're going to sell it. He said, if you want to get it, you can have everything except my electronics. I furnished a 2-bedroom apartment completely for $500. Do you hear me? That was nobody but God. My trustee talking about, well, Reverend, we paid for the hotel for 2 months. I said, go get your money back, baby. God gonna fix this before that. There won't be no hotel for 2 months. I serve a God that is able. And if our issues are not examples for our people, everything is a teaching moment. Everything is a teaching. Marvin Winans and his wife divorced. Did y'all see the YouTube of her coming back, talking to the congregation? That's awesome, isn't it? Now let me read this, and then we're going to do whatever else we scheduled to do. Marvin Winans wrote a song 40 years ago. Who's going to tell them Jesus loved them? Who's going to tell them there's a better way? Who's going to tell them the things coming on them? Who's going to tell them? And then the second line says, I'm going to tell them Jesus loves them. I'm going to tell them there's a better way. When we learn to really, really get to know our people, we become soul therapists. And then when we read enough to get the right information, because when the man came and said, I can't be charged with young men's ministry, I failed my son, I went back to the human sexuality course I took in college and really broke down that thing to him. And he left and became one of the best young men ministers I've ever seen. You got to lead the way. You've got to be able to love folk beyond their fault. I'm going to give this one illustration. I'm done. My dad was a country preacher, and I was a country preacher. And I went to this lady's house when I was pastoring in Leader-Hatchie, Alabama. So y'all don't know nothing about no Leader-Hatchie. Leader-Hatchie is just outside of Montgomery, like you're going to Selma. Lowndes County. When I was a student at Trust State, I pastored Leader-Hatchie. And I went to the lady's house one Saturday morning for an unexpected visit. And you know how we clean the house. We sweep all the trash to the door. And she said, Pastor, I wasn't expecting you. Step over my trash and come on in.
That's good.
Ain't that what Jesus does? He steps over our trash. He looked beyond my faults and saw my needs and uses me anyway. You ever preached in a trial? You ever preached when you were going through? That was some good preaching, wasn't it? You ever preached your way out of a storm? When your people see you preaching your way through a storm, and I'm trying to quit. When you surround yourself, when the people in your circle, write this down, when the people in your circle cannot tell when your cycle is out of sync, you need a new circle. Let me say that again. When the people in your circle can't tell when your cycle is out of sync, you need a new circle. When I walked in church, my building burned on a Thursday. When I walked in church Sunday morning, my deacon said, Pastor, sit right here. Pastor, what's his name, going to preach for you this morning. You don't need to preach. You need to be ministered to. That was the chairman of my deacon board. He said, you sit. It's going to be all right. Do you hear me? And when my people saw me go through the storm, it gave them courage when their storms hit, that he's the master of the sea. He's the master of it. So, what I'm going to do now is 1:30, whatever you want to do. When the people in your circle cannot tell when your cycle is out of sync, you need a new circle. And I'm trying to quit, Mike. Just bear with me for a minute. It done got personal. It done got personal. When my deacon best friend, film director, died, and his daughter, now I'm trying to drive this point home, and his daughter got up at his funeral to make remarks. She had some people with her, and the Holy Spirit said they're the wrong people. 40 days later, she dead. Okay? As pastors, okay. I like the term pastor. I don't want to be a prophet. I don't want to be an apostle. Because on any given day, God will use me in any one of those capacities. If I am open to what the Spirit of the Lord say and do. I quit. I promise. I'm done.
Let's give him a hand. I want to thank everyone. I want to especially thank.
How many did you purchase? 20? Okay, well, I think that's 20. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 16, 18.
If the Lord leads you to bless him, give him directly, if that's what the Holy Spirit leads you to do, I could not pay him to come down here. He came down here. He already did some family. So he and I, we worked